Hey, everybody, Dr. Sheena Howard here, founder of Power Your Research, an academic branding company where I help academics and educators increase their visibility, authority, and income without the expense of a publicist. And today we're talking about my framework for social media content, specifically talking head videos. And you may have heard me speak before about this, but when you're creating content, you need a framework. You can't sit down to create content with having a framework which allows your content to be consistent, but it just also allows you to know what you're doing when you're creating the content. So I have a framework for my carousels. I have a framework for my talking head videos. And the thing that developing a framework allows you to do is to outsource these things when you are ready. So you can create your own framework. After you create enough content, you get to know what works and what doesn't work. And then you boil it down to a science and you figure out, okay, out of the 5 to 10 videos that did work, what are the things they have in common? What is the format that I use? And so that's how I develop my framework for my talking head videos. And my framework for talking head videos, and if you want an example of this, you can head over to my Instagram page where it's primarily me talking to the camera, the front facing camera on my phone. And then those are edited based on this 4-step format. So the acronym is STEP. STEP. So the first thing you want to do is start with a thesis. And of course, your thesis is a declarative sentence, but it needs to be framed as a hook. I'll give you a couple of hook ideas in a second. But the first thing you do is it's giving a declarative statement, your thesis. So start with your thesis. The T is to tell a story. If you look at any TED Talk, what's the commonality? There's always a lot of storytelling in the TED Talk because that's what our brains gravitate to. We don't want to hear data, right? We don't want to hear, we want to hear stories because that keeps us interested. And things that go viral are when people are telling a story for the most part, and in my experience. The E is to end with a takeaway. So, like any story, the listener wants to know what the takeaway is. And of course, they're going to come away with their own takeaways. But in my videos, I like to be clear like, this is the takeaway of this story, because the goal of you creating content is to help the person on the other end. And then the P in STEP is to provide an actionable insight. I like of watching my video because, again, the goal of your content is to help the person on the other end. And so that STEP, start with a thesis, tell a story, end with a takeaway, provide an action that your audience can take. And let's talk about a few different hook examples. So, when you start with the thesis, you want to frame the thesis as a hook because you get a few seconds to keep someone's attention, especially on these platforms like Instagram and TikTok. And so, here are a few hooks that have worked wonderful for me. I'll give you 3 specific examples. The first is to attack a myth or bust a myth. And so, one of my first videos that went viral is a video of me talking about how I was able to write for Marvel Comics. But I start that video with saying, I say something like, I didn't get to write for Marvel Comics because I did good work and they found me. That's not how I got to write for Marvel Comics. So immediately in that hook, that's my thesis statement. It's a declarative statement. I'm telling you, hey, that's not how you're going to get a big opportunity. But I'm attacking a myth that if you build it, they will come. If you show up, they will come, right? If you just do good work and keep putting stuff out there, you'll get noticed. And so, first hook example is to bust a myth. Second one is to frame your thesis as a question, right? Frame it as a question. And so, an example of this would be, I have one video where I'm talking about some of my accomplishments, and I start the video with, did you know that I'm the first Black woman to win an Eisner Award? And so, the did you know part is a great hook because it piques people's interest, because now you want to watch the rest of the video. Is she going to tell me how I can become an Eisner Award winner? Is she going to tell me how I can maximize my book? or whatever it is. And so when I'm saying start with the thesis in this context, the thesis, the declarative statement, could simply be framed as a question. Did you know X, Y, and Z? Because now the listener understands that, okay, the rest of this video is going to be providing me some value around how I can do that thing. And then the third hook example is to take us back in time. So I use this very often. Every time I start a post or a video with something like 7 years ago, I was $70,000 in debt, sleeping on my mother's couch, it immediately sparks the audience's interest. And so take us back to a time period in the past that connects to something that you've done currently, and it is a great hook. And bonus points if you can use alliteration or repetition, such as 7 years ago, I was $70,000 in debt, right? The repetition of the seven. 6 years ago, I was $60,000 in debt. Um, I use those often, and they are always my best performing pieces of content. And so, particularly for talking head videos, this is my own framework that I use. It's called STEP. I would love for you to try it, or at minimum, post your content and create your own framework because it's going to make the content creation process so much easier. Again, my name is Dr. Sheena Howard. I'm the founder of Power Your Research, an academic branding company where I help academics and educators increase their visibility, authority, and income without the expense of a publicist. And I hope you have